Hello, welcome to Disaster Zone, and thank you for watching. We want to help you become more prepared for emergencies and disasters that can happen anywhere and at any time. I'm Eric Holdeman, and we're talking today with Jim Fennell with Prepared Response, a company that specializes in mapping facilities to be able to plan for and respond to emergencies and disasters. And Jim, it's great to have you on the show. We've known one another for a number of years.
Well, thanks for having me.
And we were just discussing before the show, we were going to do this about a year ago, and things got in the way of that.
That's
including,
right.
We have a new studio here
this is
coming on
nice.
board, new technology.
Very
and
nice.
That. So it's great to finally be doing this program with you.
Great. I appreciate it.
All right. So how about giving our viewers there a little background on the company Prepared Response, how it was formed, and what need is it fulfilling?
It's actually a pretty interesting story. Prepared Response was formed in 2000. Three sheriff's employees from Pierce County, Washington, were sent to Littleton, Colorado in 1999 after the Columbine tragedy. And their job was largely to try to understand how not to have an event like that occur back here in Washington State. And they came back with really kind of two takeaways. And that was one of the first really bad active shooter events that had ever occurred. First of all, going to battle with a plan is a really good idea. Those kind of events are really difficult to manage. The second thing that they came back with is that first responders would really benefit by having information at their fingertips in their patrol car or in the fire truck. And that's really what the genesis of Prepared Response was about, was building technology so first responders could make decisions based on factual information right in front of them.
Okay, and I had an opportunity to go to Columbine with Pierce County when they took a group there, and that was a really big school, huge.
Yeah.
Physical platform there, and there's a number of things that happened in that event. One of the things was fire, going in with police in an active shooter event. How do you do that? The whole tactics and strategies changed on the police side.
Sure.
Generally, you hold up, contain it, wait for the SWAT team to show up in an active shooter. That doesn't work. So lots of changes, and your company and Prepared Response and the technology you have was another response to that event, I think. So exactly, what is the program? What's it do, and what are the elements?
We do two things. We provide a very secure web-based system that allows first responders to access everything they'd want to know about a site before they get there or on scene. The other thing that we do, and you just kind of alluded to it, is that when we go in and work with facilities, and these can be schools, churches, hotels, casinos, convention centers, we've done a lot of ball stadiums, is we work with the facility stakeholders and the first responders to develop collaborative response plans, and we call them pre-planned tacticals, where we'll actually sit them down as part of our process of installing the software to develop a digital response plan that identifies, as you described, in advance where inner perimeters should be, outer perimeters, command post, staging for fire, and EMS, landing zones. In the case of schools, do they have a transportation plan to move all the kids off site? Where is a reunification center? Do they have a media plan to tell the parents not to go to the school, but to go pick up their kids, down the street? So all of those facets, and we've had the opportunity to do that now in 27 states, and literally thousands of sites.
Okay, and you talk about that. You do much more at schools. It started out with schools.
Schools is our strong suit.
But schools are. And parents and kids are a significant emotional event. And that pre-planning you talked about, I think, is just absolutely critical, because everyone is emotionally charged when they hear that there's been a school shooting at place and having those plans in place. And I think, in my experience, that a lot of times police and fire, first responders, may do their planning. Schools may do their planning and in silos and stovepipes, not talking to one another. I think your program, one of the nice things about it, it causes all the possible groups, PTA, whatever, to come together and be part of that planning process. Any thought on, how you've seen that play out, whether it's in the school or just other entities?
We've seen, there's two facets to it. I mean, the technology which, we build and we're really proud of, and it's it's very robust now compared to when I first started with the company.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest challenge is that when we go in and deploy on a site, there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of collaboration, and it's 5 years later. Are they still as excited about it? Are they training? Are they doing their drills? Are they doing it with their responder community? 5, 10 years down the road, and we've been around long enough now to know, kind of watch our customers and encourage them to kind of re-engage. And so you have this, it's statistical, it's a bell-shaped curve, where you get the super active champions who are using it every day, and then you get the folks who are kind of in the middle, and then you have the other tail out there, and those are the ones you want to encourage and spend time with and talk to their stakeholders and say, hey, this district or this shopping center, they're just not active.
Right.
And we can tell.
Yeah. And when was Columbine? I know, was it late 90s? Do you remember?
1999.
Yeah. So one thing that's been good that's really enabled your technology is the advance in wireless technology and connectivity that exists. Back in 1999, we didn't have smartphones. There were no iPads.
Right.
There might have been some personal data assistance type of thing. There a laptop maybe or maybe not in a police car or that those really dominate. And we were talking before, I think the technology we said was CDP, cellular data protocol, maybe something else.
CDPD, yeah, I think so, yeah.
But it was really slow. I mean,
it was horrifically slow.
We were trying to do this in King County when I was King County Emergency Manager. There was a lot of pushback. They said, well, it's too slow, especially for loading the maps and stuff like that. How have you found the technological revolution impacting what you do, and as you went from CDP or whatever it was to 3G to 4G, and who knows what's coming?
Well, there's a couple facets to it. I mean, I like technology. I use it. I'm not that great at it. I'm a responder, not a technologist, or former responder. I think that the technology that's coming out now it's very robust, rich content, the photographs, the floor plans, the images, video, is able to transit really easily onto a mobile device.
Yeah.
When we first started doing this, we had to operate on the lowest common denominator. Yes. And that was probably a rural sheriff's department that could barely afford to buy the cheapest laptop in the store. So we built around that. Yeah. And we actually built originally a remote version of the software. So if they did not have internet connectivity, which was often the case, they could still look at all the static content.
Yeah, it would reside on the laptop.
It was encrypted and reside, and we still use it. Our customers to this day, I mean, we've upgraded it a number of times, still use a remote client quite a bit. In fact, we just released an iPad version of the remote client. Because, again, if there is an emergency or a tornado or whatever it is, you can lose internet connectivity pretty easily.
Yep.
Or it gets crushed because everybody's on their phone at the same time.
Right.
Now you're in trouble.
Yes, yes. So whether it's schools, hospitals, have you found, a school or a hospital, a casino, a business, are they dramatically different at all in implementing this, or is it really the same principles, but maybe there's different interests there?
I think with schools, it's frankly it's a no-brainer. Every parent is emotional about kids. Communities are. The first responders have kids that go to the schools. Yeah. It's just there's no question about it that you want to protect kids. It's simple. I think other organizations have to have a culture or have a value proposition where they say, I want to manage my risk, I want to be accountable, and I want to be transparent, which are the new buzzwords in emergency management. Well, we can support that. I think you're still going through a revolution where first responder agencies are still learning how to adopt technology. You don't see company-issued smartphones on many police officers. They have their personal ones, but that's coming along. It used to be that an iPhone probably had more data horsepower than most CAD systems at 911 centers. Yes. And I think that's maybe still the case.
That's we're acronym free, so that's a computer-aided dispatch.
Yeah, computer-aided dispatch system. So it's coming a long way. I think it's unavoidable for public safety agencies, and as the younger people who grew up with technology infiltrate the management ranks, you'll see more and more of it.
My experience there are some Neanderthals, still is chiefs or whatever. But when I've talked to the captains, battalion chiefs coming up, and the lieutenants, captains in police departments, they may not be digital natives as Generation X or Y, but they are much more receptive and they see the ability of technology to make a difference. And they just have to be used to the challenges and the changes that happen with technology.
Well, and the funny part is most of them get off shift, and the first thing to do is pull out their smartphone to get their directions or where they're going to get their groceries or check the gas prices or go on Facebook. So they're already doing it. It's just it hasn't been applied at work, and the right applications aren't really there yet.
Okay. So I'm going off script a little bit here, but you would know. You know all these subjects inside and out. But is the changing technology challenging you guys, or you've got a platform that will adjust to the communications and new ways of commuting? Or are you technology? I mean, so you mentioned iPad. Do you have apps that apply also on, I assume, Android?
Androids,
and how about Windows Phone? Because that's
haven't gotten there yet. Sorry.
Yeah. It's interesting. We live in Windows land.
Oh,
here.
I know.
And we have another piece we're working on ourselves that we don't have a Windows app for, but we're working towards that. But any challenges there in keeping up with the changes in technology, or it just becomes faster, easier?
I think for a lot of what we do, I think the challenge is it's not the computer science and the coding, because we have our own dev shop. It's really thinking through and being a computer scientist and saying, how do I take a application and make it really easy to use for an end user who's really busy or is in an emergency or trying to run an emergency. We honestly aggravate over that a lot more than we do cut and code. And part of that is because public safety hasn't really caught up with everybody else in terms of having Yelp as an application or whatever your favorite app is on your phone. And then they just are not there yet. So we're not at a disadvantage. There's some great things that have come out just in the last few years. The location-based systems are pervasive now on smartphones, tablets, mobile, all computers. So, we know where the computer is, which means we can tell you a lot about where you are, and we can associate things. Those are exciting. They're not perfect yet. In fact, you can make mistakes. You got to be careful. The ability to have reliable web-based alerting systems, communications, I think has grown exponentially in the last 5 years. And we're now rolling out modules to our products that leverage that new technology.
Okay. I'm going to ask you another question we haven't talked about, but it's really interesting to me. One of the problems I've seen is it's really information management systems, not your product necessarily. Web EOC is something that's used for EOCs, emergency operation centers, and that is they start becoming so complex as they put more bells and whistles on them. Are you trying to maintain a standalone program that functions, I call it plug and play, or do you ever see yourself become more integrated with some of these, broader alert? When you mentioned alert and warning, I think, well, there's another example where someone says, we want you to do both things. I'm an advocate for trying to have, like apps, you have an app do this, an app do that, that I like them keeping them separate.
It's in buckets,
Yeah, so we're
kind of in between. Our apps need to talk to each other internally, but they're separate modules. That's what we're starting to build.
Okay.
And especially our downloadable apps, and would define that. Our applications, which you can access from any computer, are actually modularized. Then there are the actual apps. You get the App Store, Android and Apple and Windows. And so they have to be compartmentalized by design. That's just the way the networks work. And you can still share data, which is great. So to answer your question, I think what we're trying to do is address customers' need. And we have, with our Rapid Responder product, nearly 20,000 end users. And they tell us what they like and what they don't like and what they want to see. So
it's one good thing about firefighters and police. They're not shy about providing feedback, right?
No, I was at a meeting yesterday and I had like 5 new ideas. Just like, okay, let me write these down. You can't be everything to everybody, so you have to kind of triage the requests. But we have, we're lucky. We can do development quickly and do it in spirals, and roll out new features pretty quick.
So what's a spiral?
Well, I'm not a technologist. It's flexible programming where we've got developers that will take an idea We'll listen to customers. We'll put a spec together, just a broad one, and we'll let them take a shot at it for a couple of weeks. And we do sprints, basically.
Okay.
It might be 2 weeks, it might be 4 weeks. And then the developers come back and put it in front of our guys, the field folks, and customers and say, well, what do you think? And then they'll say, yes, no, thumbs down, fix this, change that. I don't like that color. They go back for 3 more weeks, come back and say now. So it's a spiral.
Okay.
And you just keep kind of working your way up. And hopefully when
Incrementally making the
rather than
process
trying to do
go
an
through.
end-to-end bus wreck.
Okay, yes.
We've done those
A lot
too.
of train wrecks.
We've done those too.
A lot of train wrecks. So kind of going back to schools, since I know you have a lot of expertise there, what do you think are the ideal conditions for doing work necessary to map a school, or you could say any facility? What makes it work, and what makes the wheels come off the bus of trying to get this thing done?
The single biggest impediment to success is getting the product stood up and its logistics, because we send out site survey crews, field crews, to capture data with the facility stakeholders, no matter what the site is. So if we have good logistics, good collaboration from the customer once they sign up, that makes life a lot easier. Snow on the ground doesn't work for exterior imagery.
Okay.
You can't
washes
see
it.
it. Yeah. So if you're a responder, a SWAT team, hazmat, you're looking at it's June, and now you're looking at a building that's got snow.
You couldn't have done Boston very well in February
No,
this year.
I was out there. Yeah, it's bad. We're actually doing a lot of work in New York right now, and it's all piling on because the snow's melting.
Yeah.
The only other one that really gives us headaches are complex, super complex buildings, and the easy one on that is hospitals, especially old ones. They tend to be full of hazardous materials. They've got crazy floor plans. They've been built onto a lot of times. They have nuclear materials in them. Those are hard to do, and you want to do them right.
Right.
But that's other than that, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, and are you still, way back when, my knowledge is a little bit dated here, but you'd actually map every room? I mean, you'd put a camera in the room and do a 360 so you'd know what's in individual rooms, or that's only done maybe for selected pieces?
We do it for well, first of all, it's kind of an a la carte item. It's not part of the normal packaging. We have the equipment. And we'll usually, with customers, do their main assembly areas, like the entryways, the gymnasiums,
the lunch hall,
or the atrium in the corporate office. The great part about the software is that if the customer wants to do their own, they can add them whenever they want. So we show them how to do it, and they can go ahead and have at it.
Can you easily interface with CAD drawings from the customer, and that you can just import them in? And
yeah, we over the years, been doing this for a long time. Support a lot of different file formats. We're kind of agnostic. It's just like what comes in the most. So CAD drawings, we can just load them right up. That's 99% of them anyway.
Okay.
Cameras are the same way. The video cameras, IP video cameras. They either work really well or they're just a pain in the butt. But we get them in there pretty easy.
And as far as a community says we'd like to have this, where does that impetus typically come from? Or does it come from the institution, like a school, hospital, wherever? Or if a police or fire department has used this in some other application, they're advocating for it? I mean, where's the genesis for this type of?
It ultimately lies with the infrastructure owner, because it's their site, and it's their responsibility ultimately. There's first responders, I used to be one, is we went everywhere and we didn't own anything. So that's just the way it's you don't really think about it that way. And they do a great job. So they always love having more information. And when you're talking about protecting, a ball stadium or a religious center, I mean, there's a lot of crazy things going on. There's a lot of sense of urgency right now and security across a lot of different verticals. Hospitals right now are had a lot of incidences of active shooter type things. So it really falls on the infrastructure owner. And I think the responders, agencies that are, kind of contemporary and they've got people that want to get information, they like it. And the biggest part we really focus on is getting the infrastructure owner, whether it's a school district or a church, to keep planning and preparing and training and drilling. And our technology makes it easier. We can't do it for them. You can show them, but
they have to do it.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things is always, and you talked a little bit earlier, keeping this fresh and in that. What do you think the term isn't life cycle, but the fact is you have a readiness
Right.
operational readiness, saying
Right.
you do all this planning, you got everybody together here, and then you stop meeting.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
done, and then how often should people come back together to look? Is that an annual thing, or maybe you might be able to go 2 years, or?
We recommend that, first of all, the technology, when we deploy it, the customer can update their own information, everything in it whenever they want.
Okay.
We suggest that they basically look at it twice a year. There always has to be a champion at each site, and we identify those people and just print it out, which you can do, or go online and check for updates. Some of it's compliance driven with schools that have to have lockdown drills, evacuation drills, that sort of thing.
And so you can use it for those.
You can use it for those, so they can actually pre-plan in advance on a calendar when they're going to do their drills, and they can share that with their other responder agencies and say, hey, here's our 4 drills this year for this school. If you're a school district and you're a risk manager or safety officer or whatever your role is with the district, now I can oversee all of my schools. And our enterprise, our big customers, they really like that.
Yeah.
Because they can now look at the response plans and the emergency plans from one site versus another, and look at the commonalities and the issues.
Okay. So besides being a long-time emergency manager, I was the director of security for the Port of Tacoma for 4 years, and you mentioned compliance, and one of my, this is the Eric Holdeman quote, is compliance means doing the absolute minimum possible.
Yeah.
It's not, it's great because you can use that, and people, decision makers and finance people say, okay, I understand, we need to do that. But where have you found, is it safety managers perhaps, or security people, or do you have to get to the CEO or the CFO, the chief executive officer or the chief financial officer, in order to get this implemented in an organization?
Well, it just depends. Like with school districts, for instance, we actually end up dealing with the facilities people because they're charged with the responsibility of safety, and it's usually really out of their swim lanes. It's just so they're eager to learn more, most of them, or at least have it addressed, and they feel comfortable about it. On the other end of the spectrum, where we work with, we're working right now with a major real estate corporation that has a lot of commercial real estate, and they're very, very proactive about risk management. To them, it's all about their brand and their continuity of operations. So if one of their buildings gets shut down, it costs them, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a day. So how do you keep it going? And that it also wraps around emergency response and planning and collaboration. So you get a full mix. I would say the roles are usually risk managers and a lot of times CFOs and facility people, and maybe not so much security.
Okay, that's where that interest and emphasis comes from.
Yeah.
Okay, they can see the risk in that. We're going to go back to schools a little bit. I know in Washington State, the first schools mapped were high schools.
Right.
And unfortunately, what we've seen over the years, you go back to Newtown.
Yeah.
No one ever in 1999 thought there'd be a school shooting at an elementary school.
Right.
And with first graders being murdered in that. If people were looking to implement this in a school district wide, or that, would you say start with the high schools, or it appears maybe it doesn't make any difference where you start?
I honestly don't think it makes sense. There's a lot of reasons there can be violence, aggressive violence at high schools for obvious reasons. But what happened in Newtown and some of these other tragedies, with school districts, it's basically, you just might as well do them all, because you don't want to do the ones where it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
Or if they
Yeah.
get that right. And
Yeah.
the other part of that is, with, say, commercial buildings or government buildings, you can kind of triage and pick the likely suspects and work down.
Yeah.
Schools, that's a different deal right now. It really is.
Okay.
We recommend you just get them all. And also, when you do all of the schools, the first responders don't have to think about which ones are on the system and which ones aren't. It's automatic.
Right. What recommendations would you have to a company, hospital, any organization looking to, maybe they're interested in this idea of mapping their facility and having it worked out with the fire and police and all that? Where should they start?
I think they have to really decide if they're going to be committed to emergency preparedness and planning, or for a business it might be business continuity and risk management. It's the same thing, maybe different words.
Yeah.
You have to be committed. I mean, we provide basically consulting services and a really, really kind of cool tool to really help them take off.
Right.
But we don't want to sell a product to somebody who's not going to use it. So there has to be commitment there.
Yeah.
And you can usually tell when you start working with the customers.
Yeah.
If they're going to, spend money to invest in it,
Yeah.
then they got to be committed.
Yeah, and it isn't just one person. There has to be a team of people engaged.
It
in
does.
this.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, with schools, it's superintendents and facilities people, and if they have school resource officers, which is becoming less and less, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important.
It has budget cuts.
Budget is
Right?
expensive.
Yep. And if nothing's happened yet, I mean, it's one of the things that go
Yeah.
by the wayside. How about, and the last question here, there's been this implementation of the incident command system really nationally because of the events of 9/11, the terrorist attacks in New York, Washington, D.C., and the airplane. Any big change to this, or has it really helped your system?
I think we ended up designing a whole module for that, for incident command, and it was interesting. I was doing a presentation yesterday. It's in 5 years, it's been used 55,000 times by our
Okay.
customers.
All right.
And and we kind of simplified it so you can use it for any event.
Okay.
So it's just not straight up emergencies.
Okay.
I think more and more it's becoming adopted and second nature to a lot of organizations. And if they're not active with it, they're at least familiar with it. And even our customers, the facility owners, the schools, businesses,
Are using it
they
more.
know what NIMS, they know what it stands for at least.
Okay.
And that's a good start.
All right.
You got to start someplace.
Well, listen, we're at the end of our
Yeah.
show here, Jim. As a souvenir, you get to keep your
Oh, wow.
disaster zone coffee cup, take it home to your wife, and maybe you put it somewhere where there's a mess in the house, and she'll tell you to clean it up. But thanks for being on the
Oh, yeah.
show,
My pleasure.
and look forward to hopefully lots of people viewing it and getting better informed how you can use technology.
Thank you.
So-
Appreciate it.
And this brings us to the close of our show for today. Thanks for tuning in and learning more about what you and others can do to become better prepared for disasters. And remember, if you're going to get prepared, today is a good day to start. Have a great day.